Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for July 13th, 2022, around 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Not much to talk about, but we will be talking about some potential severe weather across the northwest United States and the southeast U.S. today, and a look at tropical activity in the Pacific and what could be happening in the Atlantic and when Tropical Storm Danielle may form in the Atlantic basin. Let's go ahead and jump straight into everything. Taking a look across the tropical Atlantic today, not much is actually occurring. It's actually relatively quiet today in the Atlantic. We did have a potential tropical disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico that has actually since now moved inland and is no longer really posing any significant concern for development over the next couple of days. We will be watching the potential for some shower and thunderstorm activity along kind of this front here, and the potential for, something to kind of break off, head towards Texas as a rainmaker, but nothing else. And really, then we have this giant upper level low kind of sitting over the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos right now. It's a pretty strong shear out across here, and not much else going on in the deep tropics for now. So we can see in the Atlantic basin that no tropical cyclone activity is expected for the next 5 days. That is certainly some good news. However, in the Pacific, things are cooking up quite nicely. We can see here today on the visible satellite, we have Hurricane Darby out here still holding on as a pretty potent hurricane. This is actually still officially Category 2 hurricane. Let's go ahead and zoom in here, taking a look at the zoomed in high-res satellite. We actually noticed, though, that the storm looks way better defined today and than it did overnight, and actually has that eye re-emerging. It's actually begun to clear out. If we can zoom in here, we can actually see how well the eye is actually cleared out. Very cleared out here. And so the temperature in the eye is probably getting quite warm. Now, we can definitely tell that there is some dry, stable air to the north and west. All of these cumuliform and like stratus decks here, this indicates that we have some cold and stable air, relatively cool and stable. And that's definitely allowing for some dry air to be wrapped around into the circulation. And overall, these sea surface temperatures are quite, they're definitely not as warm as you head further towards the west. If we look at where the storm is actually projected to go for the next couple of days, this is expected to weaken once again into a low-end hurricane by tonight into tomorrow. The Category 1 position here, this is by tomorrow at about 12 Z, so 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. This will be a 75-knot hurricane, and then this will be weakening then down into a tropical storm, and then eventually a remnant circulation here by really on Saturday, passing well south of Hawaii. So there are no threats right now to the island of Hawaii at all. That is certainly some good news there. And focusing back across the rest of the tropical Pacific, we are still watching for additional complexes of development to occur. First of all, we have this area of low pressure here. This has not been tagged as an invest yet, but will likely get that designation sooner rather than later. And this is going to be moving off generally towards the northwest here over the next couple of days. Now, this should stay far enough away from portions of coastal Mexico, so I'm not really concerned about land impacts to portions of coastal Mexico at all, but this should stay far enough away, and then eventually this will be moving off and out into the tropical Pacific. And then we'll be watching for additional development back here across portions of the far eastern part of the basin here, for additional tropical waves coming off from the Atlantic and developing out here and continuing the powerhouse East Pacific Basin for now. Then things should begin to shut off here by early August as the tropical Atlantic will begin to take over. So let's look at the GFS forecast. This is the 850 millibar vorticity. This is looking at the East Pacific version of everything, but again, this is the spinning the atmosphere at about 5,000 feet off the ground. And so basically what we want to see if we're going to be dealing with a healthy tropical cyclone is going to be that right there. Those nice, compact, rounded isobars, and basically having these dark reds in here. This indicates that a very healthy storm is present in the model forecast. And we notice that over the next few days, we do get a tropical system to develop. Again, this still develops several hundred miles away. This is about 200 miles off the coast of Mexico. So there's still no significant threat to portions of coastal Mexico, but we'll continue to monitor. And then eventually that drifts northwest before finally dissipating. And then we have kind of a parade of more storms, potentially 3 additional storms forming out here across the tropical Pacific over the next couple of weeks. This is to be expected. This is basically the East Pacific's peak hurricane season. So this is certainly nothing new. We'll continue to monitor, but right now there just does not seem to be any significant land concerns over the next few days. It is very rare that we get any land concerns this early in the season for portions of Mexico, but we'll be watching nonetheless. In the Atlantic side of everything, pretty much all is quiet for now. We don't really see much activity across the basin. It's pretty much quiet because of all the activity in the Pacific. And we noticed that across most of the Pacific for the next, or the Atlantic for the next several weeks, there's just no development to really speak of. But looking at the GFS ensembles here, this kind of gives us a better idea of what to expect. We notice that right now, again, we'll be heading into generally lower than average pressures across the Atlantic basin, at least for the next couple of days. That will reverse though, and eventually we'll get into a pattern where we have consistently higher pressures than average before probably flipping back to below average pressures and staying that way for the remainder of the hurricane season, as it is likely that we'll see activity start to really peak up after early August. And we look at the precipitation and the moisture in the atmosphere. This is the precipitable water. So we're really kind of just looking at the above and below averages of the moisture content. We notice that again for the next couple of days, we will see activity that is generally below average, pretty dry out there as we would expect for the month of July. And then we can see it begins to moisten up across the tropical Atlantic. We do get this little patch here that's unfavorable, but generally speaking, Africa is much wetter than average, and we will have these occasional bursts of activity. This is still only going out to July 28th, so again, it's still going to be pretty active as we head into the month of August and, of course, September and October. So we'll definitely have to pay attention to that. Now, focusing back on the United States weather today, we have a couple of risks for severe storms today. We have a risk for severe storms across portions of the southeast U.S. today. We have a slight risk for severe storms generally from portions of Jackson, Mississippi, Meridian, all the way through Demopolis, and just to near Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, Alabama today. A couple of severe storms already ongoing across portions of the southeast and in portions of Mississippi, just to the southeast of Charleston, Mississippi. We have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. Generally, these should be for 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail. No tornado threats today that is expected. That is certainly some good news. We do have some potential for some hail, wind, and then, of course, we do have the significant risk here. There's a significant risk, a hatched area of seeing significant wind damage across portions of Montana. And this is going to be basically suggesting that we could see wind in excess of about 70 to 80 miles per hour in some of these locations, including places like Butte, Great Falls, up towards near just Glasgow, Wolf Point. Some of those areas could be impacted by some severe weather today, but that greatest concentration will be probably around the Great Falls to Bozeman and Lewiston areas, to the west of Glasgow and to the east of Missoula. So we'll be watching for those. And of course, there's also a marginal risk for severe storms today across portions of northern portions of Ohio and northeastern Indiana and far southeastern Michigan as well. So we'll be watching that very closely. Some shower and thunderstorm activity peaking up right there. And again, the main threats today from that will be wind and hail. No threats up in the northeast, but we'll be watching for some isolated severe storms. And of course, Florida and Texas, risks for some weather there as well. All right. So that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. And of course, I am Michael O'Malley, and I will be talking to you guys again some more tomorrow.